Marcus Diesel Thompson had been coming to Rosie's diner every Tuesday morning at 2:15 for 3 years. Same booth, same coffee, same quiet corner where Hell's Angels could eat without judgment. That's where he first saw the bruises on Jenny's neck. Purple fingerprints wrapped around her throat like a necklace. Then came the split lip she tried hiding with too much lipstick, the long sleeves in summer heat, the way she flinched when men raised their voices. Marcus knew these signs. His mother wore identical bruises before his stepfather killed her when Marcus was 12. So he did what Hell's Angels do best. He started following Jenny's boyfriend. What Marcus didn't know was that everything he understood about those bruises was completely wrong. Marcus Thompson was 48 years old and sergeant-at-arms for the Iron Riders chapter of the Hells Angels when he first noticed Jenny Castellano's bruises. It was a Tuesday night at 2:15 in the morning at Rosie's Diner, the only 24-hour restaurant in Riverside that served decent coffee and didn't ask questions about the men in leather vests who occupied the back corner booth. Marcus and 5 of his brothers had just finished a long ride from Sacramento, tired and hungry, looking for food before heading home. Jenny had been their usual server for 3 months, quiet, efficient, polite, but distant. She never made small talk, never lingered at tables, never smiled beyond the professional minimum required by customer service. Marcus had always noticed that remoteness, but attributed it to the general wariness people felt around bikers. Most civilians saw the patches and tattoos and made assumptions. Jenny seemed to fit that pattern. Until that Tuesday night when she reached across the table to refill Marcus's coffee and her sleeve rode up, revealing purple and yellow bruises circling her wrist like a bracelet. Marcus's entire body went rigid. He knew those bruises. Defensive wounds. Someone had grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave finger-shaped marks. Jenny noticed him staring and quickly pulled her sleeve down, her face flushing with embarrassment. "Just clumsy," she said quickly, her voice too bright. Walked into a door. Marcus said nothing, but his mind was racing. His mother had used the same excuses. Walked into a door. Fell downstairs. Tripped over the dog. All lies covering the truth that Marcus's stepfather was beating her to death slowly over 12 years, until one night when Marcus was 12 years old, his stepfather finally succeeded. Over the following weeks, Marcus watched Jenny carefully. More bruises appeared. A split lip she tried to hide with lipstick. A black eye covered with makeup that didn't quite match her skin tone. Finger marks on her neck that foundation couldn't completely conceal. And always the same excuses. Clumsy. Accident. My own fault. The pattern was textbook domestic violence. Marcus had studied it after his mother's death, trying to understand how it happened, how he had missed the signs, how he could have saved her. Marcus started arriving at Rosie's Diner more frequently. Different times, different days. Always watching Jenny. He noticed other things. She never took phone calls during her shift, but she checked her phone obsessively during breaks, her face tense and worried. She drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dented bumper and expired registration tags. She wore the same 3 outfits rotated throughout the week, all of them worn and faded. And she was always exhausted, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she wasn't sleeping. One night, Marcus followed her after her shift ended at 6 in the morning. Not close enough to be obvious, but careful enough to track where she went. Jenny drove to a modest apartment complex in a lower-income neighborhood. A man was waiting outside her building. Tall, well-dressed, expensive watch. He grabbed Jenny's arm when she tried to walk past him, pulling her close, speaking into her face with obvious aggression. Jenny tried to pull away. He tightened his grip. They argued for 3 minutes before Jenny finally went inside with him, her body language radiating defeat and fear. Marcus had seen enough. He returned to the Iron Riders clubhouse and called a meeting. 8 members gathered, men ranging from 35 to 60 years old. All of them experienced in violence. All of them loyal to Marcus. All of them familiar with his history and why domestic violence cases affected him personally. Marcus explained what he'd observed. The bruises, the fear, the controlling boyfriend, the obvious abuse. "We're going to handle this," Marcus told them. "The way we should have handled things for my mother." The group started. Surveillance. 2 members followed Jenny during her shifts, watching for the boyfriend. 2 others tracked his movements, learning his routine. His name was David Chen, 34 years old. Financial consultant, drove a BMW. Lived in an upscale condo downtown. worked at a prestigious firm. On paper, he looked respectable, successful. The kind of man who could hide abuse behind professional status and social connections. The kind of man who would never face consequences because people like him rarely did. But the Hells Angels weren't interested in paper credentials or social status. They were interested in stopping a man from killing a woman the way Marcus's stepfather had killed his mother. The plan was simple. Confront David Chen. Make him understand that hurting Jenny again would have severe consequences. Convince him to leave her alone permanently. Not through violence necessarily, though that was always available as an option, but through intimidation, through making him more afraid of the Hells Angels than he was comfortable being with Jenny. What Marcus and his brothers didn't know, couldn't have known, was that David Chen wasn't Jenny's boyfriend. He was her FBI handler. And Jenny Castellano wasn't a waitress. She was Special Agent Jennifer Castellano, undercover for 2 years, infiltrating a human trafficking network that moved women from Central America into forced prostitution across California, Nevada, and Arizona. The bruises on her body were real, inflicted by the actual criminals she was gathering evidence against. David Chen was trying to pull her out of an operation that was becoming too dangerous, and Jenny was refusing because she was close to identifying the network's leadership. The trafficking operation worked through legitimate businesses, restaurants, motels, massage parlors. Women were brought across the border with promises of jobs and legal work, then trapped through debt, bondage, and threats against their families. The network was sophisticated, protected by corrupt officials and violent enforcers. Jenny had spent 2 years working her way into the organization's trust, starting as a server at Rosie's Diner, which the traffickers used as a meeting point and money laundering front. Jenny's cover story was perfect. Single mother fleeing an abusive relationship, desperate for work, willing to do anything for money. No family, no support system. Exactly the kind of vulnerable woman the traffickers targeted. Over 2 years, Jenny had documented payments, identified key players, and gathered evidence for federal prosecution. She was weeks away from having enough to take down the entire network and free 40 women being held in locations across 3 states. But the operation was deteriorating. The traffickers were becoming suspicious. Jenny's injuries were escalating as they tested her loyalty through violence. David Chen, her handler, believed the operation had become too dangerous and wanted to extract her before she was killed. Jenny refused. She was too close. The women being trafficked were depending on her. If she left now, the network would scatter, the evidence would disappear, and those women would remain enslaved. So Jenny endured the beatings, maintained her cover, and told David to give her 4 more weeks. That's when the Hells Angels began their surveillance. 8 large men on motorcycles following Jenny and David, asking questions about them in the neighborhood, making inquiries that attracted attention. Within 3 days, the trafficking network noticed. They assumed Jenny was under police surveillance. They assumed her cover was blown. And they prepared to eliminate her. Marcus and his brothers remained oblivious to these dynamics. They saw an abused woman and a violent boyfriend. They saw a situation they understood and could fix. On a Thursday night, they executed their plan. 6 Hells Angels waited outside David Chen's condo building. When he emerged at 7:30 in the morning heading to his car, they surrounded him. Marcus did the talking. David Chen. We need to have a conversation about Jenny Castellano. David's training kicked in immediately. He assessed the threat. 6 men. All armed, probably. No backup. His service weapon was in his ankle holster, but drawing it would escalate to gunfight in a residential area. His best option was de-escalation. Gentlemen, he said carefully, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Marcus stepped closer. No misunderstanding. We've seen what you're doing to her. The bruises, the fear. It stops now. You leave her alone permanently, or we make you leave her alone. David's mind raced. These bikers thought he was Jenny's abuser. They were trying to protect her, which meant they were about to destroy 2 years of undercover work and get Jenny killed. I can't do that, David said. Marcus's expression hardened. Then we have a problem. David made a split-second decision. He pulled his badge from his jacket. FBI. Special Agent David Chen. Jenny Castellano is a federal agent working undercover. You need to back off immediately before you compromise her operation and get her killed. Marcus stared at the badge, then at David, then back at the badge. You're lying. Abusers lie. They manipulate. They use authority to intimidate. David's voice was urgent. I'm not lying. Call the FBI field office. Ask for Assistant Director Patricia Warner. Give her my name and badge number. She'll confirm everything. But do it now because your surveillance has already compromised Jenny's cover, and we need to extract her before the traffickers kill her. Marcus didn't believe him. It seemed too convenient, too perfect. An abuser claiming to be FBI to avoid consequences. Marcus had heard every excuse, every manipulation, every lie from his stepfather. This felt the same. Show me proof, Marcus demanded. Real proof. Not just a badge. David pulled out his phone and dialed. Patricia, it's Chen. I've got a situation. 6 hells. Angels think I'm Jenny's abusive boyfriend, and they're about to blow her cover. I need you to talk to them. He handed the phone to Marcus. A woman's voice, professional and commanding. This is Assistant Director Patricia Warner, FBI. To whom am I speaking? Marcus identified himself. Warner's tone shifted slightly. Mr. Thompson, Agent Chen is telling you the truth. Jennifer Castellano is a federal agent working a human trafficking case. Your surveillance over the past week has been noticed by the subjects of her investigation. Her cover is now compromised. We need to extract her immediately. If you want to help her, you'll back off and let us do our job. Marcus felt his certainty crumbling. He looked at his brothers, seeing his own confusion reflected in their faces. How do we know you're really FBI? How do we know this isn't some elaborate cover? Warner's voice was patient but firm. Come to the field office. Right now. I'll show you everything. But Mr. Thompson, every minute we waste is a minute Jenny is in danger from the people she's investigating. Not from Agent Chen. From actual criminals who traffic women and will kill a federal agent if they confirm she's law enforcement. Marcus made a decision. The Iron Riders followed David Chen to the FBI field office in downtown Sacramento. They were met by Assistant Director Warner, a woman in her 50s with gray hair, and an expression that suggested she had dealt with worse complications than interfering bikers. She led them to a secure conference room and laid out the operation. Photos of Jenny meeting with traffickers. Surveillance footage of the violence she endured to maintain cover. Evidence of the network she was infiltrating. Names of 40 women being held in forced prostitution. The case file was extensive and undeniable. Marcus sat in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of his mistake. Jenny wasn't a victim of domestic violence. She was a federal agent enduring violence to save actual victims. David Chen wasn't an abuser. He was trying to protect his agent. And the Hell's Angels, trying to be heroes, had almost gotten Jenny killed. I fucked up, Marcus said quietly. We thought we were helping. Warner's expression softened slightly. Your intentions were good. But this is why we don't encourage civilian intervention. These situations are more complex than they appear. Can we fix this? Marcus asked. Can we help? Warner considered the question. Maybe. Your surveillance already compromised her cover. The traffickers are suspicious. We're extracting Jenny tonight before they act. But extractions are delicate. If it looks like law enforcement, the network scatters and we lose everything. If it looks like something else, something organic to Jenny's cover story, we might salvage the operation. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of something else? Warner explained. Jenny's cover is an abused woman desperate for money. What if her new boyfriend's friends, dangerous biker types, scared off her abuser and convinced her to leave town? That's organic to her backstory. The traffickers would believe it, and it gives Jenny a reason to disappear that doesn't scream federal extraction. Marcus understood immediately. You want us to stage a rescue? Warner nodded. Exactly. Tonight. Make it loud. Make it public. Make sure the traffickers' surveillance sees it. Convince them that Jenny left because bikers intervened in her personal life, not because she's law enforcement. That night, the operation unfolded at Rosie's Diner during Jenny's shift. 8 Hell's Angels entered at 11:30, loud and aggressive, demanding to speak to Jenny. The diner's manager, who was part of the trafficking network's money laundering operation, watched nervously. Jenny came out from the kitchen, her face showing perfect surprise and fear. Who are you? She asked, her voice trembling. What do you want? Marcus stepped forward, playing his role. Your boyfriend David sent us. Said you need help getting away from some bad people. Said you're in danger. We're here to take you somewhere safe. Jenny's performance was flawless. No, I can't. They'll hurt my family. They'll find me. Marcus's voice was firm but gentle. Not if you come with us. We protect our own. And you're one of ours now. The diner's manager stepped forward. She's not going anywhere. She owes money. She has obligations. Marcus turned on him, all pretense of gentleness gone. She doesn't owe you anything. And if you try to stop us, you'll deal with us. Understand? The manager backed off, already reaching for his phone to report this development to his superiors. Perfect. That's exactly what Warner wanted. The traffickers needed to see Jenny leaving with bikers, not federal agents. Jenny grabbed her purse, still playing the frightened victim perfectly. Okay, I'll come. But please, you have to protect me. They'll come after me. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders. Nobody's touching you. We've got you. They walked out together. Jenny flanked by 8 Hell's Angels, the diner's manager watching and photographing everything. They drove Jenny to a safe house where David Chen and Patricia Warner waited. Once inside, Jenny dropped her frightened victim act and became the federal agent she actually was. That was good work, she told Marcus. Very convincing. Marcus looked at her, really seeing her for the first time. Not as a victim, but as someone who had voluntarily endured violence for 2 years to save others. Why didn't you just tell us? He asked. Warner answered, because you're civilians. You had no need to know. And frankly, your interference almost destroyed 2 years of work. Marcus felt the rebuke, but also the opportunity. So let us help finish it. We owe you that. Over the next 3 weeks, the Hells Angels became unexpected assets to the FBI operation. Their staged rescue of Jenny had been believable enough that the trafficking network assumed she had fled with a biker boyfriend. They didn't scatter. They didn't change operations. They continued business as usual, which gave the FBI time to coordinate with local and federal agencies for simultaneous raids across 3 states. Marcus and his brothers provided intelligence on locations they knew from their own experience with criminal networks. They identified buildings that looked legitimate, but could be fronts for trafficking operations. They used their street connections to verify information the FBI couldn't access through official channels. And most importantly, they helped Warner understand the psychology of the traffickers, men who operated through intimidation and violence in ways that formal law enforcement training didn't always capture. The raids happened on a Tuesday morning. Coordinated strikes at 17 locations. 40 women freed from forced prostitution. 23 traffickers arrested. Evidence seized that connected the network to corrupt officials in 2 states. The operation was a complete success. The case would be celebrated as one of the FBI's most significant human trafficking prosecutions in years. And none of it would have been possible without the Hells Angels who accidentally stumbled into the middle of it. 6 months later, Marcus received an invitation to a private ceremony at FBI headquarters in Sacramento. He brought his wife Rachel and 4 of his brothers who had participated in Jenny's extraction. They were met by Assistant Director Warner, who led them to a conference room where Jenny waited, no longer in Waitress uniform but in a professional suit, looking healthy and confident. Warner began the briefing. Thanks to the intelligence gathered during Agent Castellano's undercover operation, we've prosecuted 23 individuals involved in human trafficking across 3 states. 40 women have been freed and are receiving support services. The network has been completely dismantled. Your assistance, while unorthodox, was instrumental in the operation's success. She paused, then pulled out 8 plaques. These are FBI Civilian Service Awards, normally reserved for citizens who provide exceptional assistance to federal law enforcement. I never thought I'd be giving them to Hells Angels, but here we are. Marcus accepted his plaque, reading the inscription that thanked him for his service to the FBI's human trafficking investigation. It felt surreal. Hells Angels receiving awards from the federal government. Jenny approached him after the ceremony. Thank you, she said simply, for trying to save me. Even though I didn't need saving the way you thought, your heart was in the right place. Marcus shook his head. I should have asked questions. Should have been smarter. I almost got you killed. Jenny smiled. You almost got me killed. Yes, but you also gave me the perfect exit strategy. Sometimes mistakes work out. Over the following years, an unusual partnership developed between the Iron Riders chapter and the FBI's regional office. The Hells Angels provided street-level intelligence on criminal networks the FBI struggled to penetrate. The FBI provided legal resources and protection for club members who wanted to leave criminal activities behind. It wasn't friendship exactly. Too much history and cultural difference for that, but it was respect. Understanding that both groups, in their own ways, were trying to stop predators and protect vulnerable people. Marcus never forgot the lesson from Jenny's case. That things aren't always what they appear. That jumping to conclusions, even with good intentions, can cause harm. That asking questions and seeking truth matters more than acting on assumptions. He shared that lesson with younger Hell's Angels, using his mistake as a teaching moment. See something wrong? Investigate. Understand. Verify. Then act. Don't just react based on surface appearances. Jenny continued her career with the FBI, eventually becoming a supervisory special agent running undercover operations. She stayed in contact with Marcus, occasionally consulting him when cases involved motorcycle clubs or street-level criminal networks. Their relationship was professional but warm, built on mutual respect and the shared memory of the night. 8 bikers rescued. A federal agent who didn't need rescuing but appreciated the attempt. 10 years after the trafficking case, Marcus received a call from Jenny. She was retiring from the FBI and wanted to thank him one more time. "The operation we worked together," she said. "It changed how I approach undercover work. Made me realize that civilians, even ones who think they're interfering, often see things we miss. Your mistake saved that operation." Marcus laughed. "Still calling it a mistake?" Jenny's voice was warm. "The best mistakes are the ones that turn into something good." Marcus Thompson rode with the Hells Angels for 30 years. He earned his road name Diesel through toughness and reliability. He built a reputation as someone who protected the vulnerable, someone who stood up to abusers, someone whose mother's death had taught him to recognize and stop domestic violence wherever he saw it. His intervention in Jenny Castellano's situation hadn't been what he thought. She wasn't being abused by a boyfriend. She was being assaulted by criminals while working undercover to save trafficking victims. But Marcus's mistake, his assumption, his willingness to act when he saw bruises, had ultimately helped complete a 2-year investigation and freed 40 women. That's the complicated truth about intervention. Sometimes you're wrong about the specifics but right about the intention. Sometimes mistakes lead to unexpected successes. Sometimes the most dangerous-looking men trying to stop violence accidentally become part of stopping an entirely different kind of violence. And sometimes federal agents and motorcycle club members discover they're on the same side, fighting the same predators, protecting the same victims, just using different methods and making different kinds of mistakes along the way. The plaques from the FBI still hung in the Iron Riders clubhouse. A reminder that heroism is complicated, that assumptions can be dangerous, and that sometimes the people who look like criminals and the people who look like victims are neither. Sometimes the waitress with bruises is saving lives. Sometimes the well-dressed boyfriend is protecting her. And sometimes the bikers who think they're rescuing someone are actually rescuing an operation that will save dozens. Nothing is ever as simple as it appears. That's what Marcus learned. That's what he taught. And that's why he always asked questions before opening arms or raising fists, because the bruises you see might not tell the story you think they tell. If this story about assumptions, unexpected alliances, and the complexity of trying to help challenged how you think about intervention and heroism, smash that subscribe button and turn notifications on for more stories that refuse simple narratives. Drop a like if you appreciate when reality is more complicated than it appears. Here's your question for the comments. If you saw someone with obvious signs of abuse, would you intervene immediately or investigate first to understand the full situation? There's no perfect answer, but it's worth thinking about. Let's discuss the messy ethics of trying to help in the comments below. See you in the next story.